Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I am Sean Butler. Bugsy Malone is up in the distance over there, doing the things that she loves to do. I hope you guys are too. With those that you love to do them with, please do me a favour, guys, smash the like button for me if you enjoy this content. Hit the subscribe as well if you haven't already. Even if you have, double check you still are. Hit the notification bell and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's topics. Guys, we've got a couple of outgoing stories. Pedro Porro, Heung Min's son, and Archie Gray. And they're kind of, or two of them at least, weave in together. We're going to come to that briefly. We've also got a quick recap on David Pleat's interview on TalkSport regarding, well, all things of his career. He was pitching his new book, but he was asked questions about Daniel Levy. And obviously yesterday I was on a show with We Are Tottenham TV. Shout out to those guys, Ben and Sim, and the wonderful Ricky Sachs. And the four of us were supposed to cover 3 topics in the hour, but we ended up only covering 1. And I had a disaster from the moment I woke up. The people that are kind of infiltrating my life, they decided to switch off my camera just before we went live, then my microphone, so it was just all up in the air. And you know, I'm still ring rusty with the whole getting back on the content spiel, so I don't think I did my best service. But you know, as usual, I found myself taking the side of Daniel Levy more than I probably want to, and I feel like I need to kind of, you know, sometimes sort of take a step back and recognize that my intention when I started this channel was really born out of the frustration that I had with the mainstream media generally, on all sorts of topics, on COVID, on politics, on finance, on any particular topic or category. I've always found that the mainstream media pick a lane and show their bias all too frequently, and that there may or may not be another angle that is left to explore, that no channel, no mainstream media outlet really does a good enough job in representing balance. And I think that balance is key. I really do. I think in everything in life, especially at Tottenham, I think that, you know, like I said yesterday, I don't think we have necessarily a lack of quality. I think we do have a lack of balance. And if we could fix that, then I think that a lot would, there'd be a lot less inconsistencies and our ride would be a lot smoother. But you know, it is what it is. But yeah, my intentions with the channel was to kind of say, well, I feel like there's space in the middle of the road. If you are to represent both sides of the narrative, then you're letting the audience make up their own mind rather than trying to shape an opinion. You're just giving your take, but only after you've told people what your opinion is on both of the stances on a given topic. When it comes to Daniel Levy, I didn't mean to be the guy who is thought of as the Levy sympathizer or whatever. That wasn't my intention. I'm not even that keen on him as like an individual. But I do think, I just happen to also agree that with David Pleat, specifically yesterday, who said he thinks that Daniel Levy gets too raw of a stick thrown at him for all that is wrong with Tottenham. And like I've always said, I would go one step further and say I just think that there's an inconsistent application of blame, and I think that it's too complex a topic with too much water under the bridge, too many variables and weightings of which are sort of mashed together and overly simplified by aiming it at one person's feet. For what it's worth, if there was one person that I think is more responsible for Tottenham and every other club outside of the Big Five and their lack of success over the last 25 years, I would probably throw it towards Roman Abramovich's feet, because he was the guy that came in and rewrote the rules before the rules were ever in motion around, you know, exorbitant spend and a different approach towards ownership that wasn't built around profitability or sustainability or a business. It was built around, I mean, I don't know, for want of a better word, like money laundering and trying to hide illicit earnings and put them through, you know, an English football club to kind of leverage some sort of credibility and whitewash some of the kind of question marks around where that money came from. Then you could extrapolate that and say, is the same thing happening at Manchester City? Possibly, probably, and those two clubs are, you know, more responsible for the trophies getting pulled in one direction over the last 20 years than any other. And of course, you bake in the other 3 clubs that have had success as well, who have always been more successful than everybody else and had a head start organically. Then, you know, that is the reason why, in my opinion, the largest reason why there is such a lack of a dearth of success at Tottenham and every other club that is competing for them. But that doesn't mean that I feel like Daniel Levy should go without any criticism. For sure, he's made lots of mistakes. But obviously, like I say, sometimes I feel like when an argument is so heavily represented by other people in a topic, then if you're interested in balance, then you spend more time than you would otherwise want to talking about the other side, just so that people can hear both sides of the coin. And when it comes to Daniel Levy, I think that there is a very, very strong representation of the Levy out, Levy's to blame narrative. I just don't think that there is enough attention given to the other side. And so that's why I try to do it. But it's not really my intention to come across like I'm a Levy sympathiser. I just, like I say, feel like I probably have to lean more that way if balance is my ultimate goal. But in any event, David Pleat is connected to the club. His time at the club spans the pre-Levy era and under Sugar, and the post-Levy era, or the current Levy era. And he's obviously got an intimate relationship with the club. And so I'd say that he is more kind of connected and kind of in the know, I guess, of the specifics and the detail than most of us. That said, I think you also have to investigate his motivations, as you do anybody else's, before you just decide to agree with a take because they happen to agree with your take. And I think David Pleat probably does have some motivations. He probably is favourable of Daniel Levy. Daniel Levy gave him a job. He gave him the assistant manager role, the caretaker manager role, I think twice in the early days. And possibly he has the basis of comparison between him and Alan Sugar, and thinks that Daniel Levy has done a good job because he was intimately involved with the Sugar era and the Levy era, so he has the basis for comparison that not many people do. He also seems to respect the idea of hierarchy. I think that much came across, which is not something I necessarily agree with. I'm a little bit unorthodox in that regard. I've always struggled with authority, I guess, and just respecting somebody who is above you on a ladder just because they've been at a place longer than you. He made 3 or 4 references to the idea of the managers and the players are employees, and Daniel Levy is the employer, and that relationship should be respected. And in the eyes of him, and for what it's worth, Simon Jordan and Jim White, the Conte message and the Mourinho messages were never were demonstrating too much of a disrespect towards that relationship of employer-employee, because they came with some credibility in their career and enough money to kind of have the ability to say F you if they wanted to. To be honest, guys, I've got to just press pause on this rant for a second, as I'm 8 minutes in, haven't even got to the main story. But what I would say is, I feel like a lot of people seem to. I mean, when you have so many people that remember a thing differently to you, it's probably you that's got it wrong. So let me know. I probably got this wrong, but I watched that Conte outrage thing again a couple of days ago, and once again, it still came across to me like, if you take Conte at his word, I don't necessarily think he was throwing Daniel Levy under the bus. It came across to me like he was talking about the players or he was having a go at the media for absolving the players of the responsibility for poor performances, and that they were attacking the managers rather than the players. But everyone else seems to think it was a dig at the club. So I must be wrong on it. But let me know if you agree that it was a dig at Daniel Levy rather than the players. Because when I watched it, I've always seen it as the other way. But maybe it was more of a veiled dig, I'm not sure. In any event, David Pleat thinks that the managers were out of order. I agree. He also said that there was the Pochettino, the 500 days thing without a transfer window, without a transfer being made. He also suggested that, according to the people inside the club at the time, I forget the director of football, my mind's gone blank, but he told David Pleat that Pochettino was happy with the squad and didn't ask for any transfers in that first window after the Champions League final, and so didn't have any because it was easier for Daniel Levy with that and the fact that there was £1 billion of debt suddenly put onto the club for the redevelopment project. So again, not sure really where David Pleat's motivation is to say that, if that is true or not, because Pochettino came out not long afterwards, didn't he, and said that we needed a painful rebuild, and he didn't get one. So again, you have to question the motivations. Is there like too much respect from David Pleat towards Daniel Levy for giving him a job? Is there too much respect just for general hierarchical kind of like notions in that mean that someone's right just because they're the boss? Not sure what the motivations are, but in any event, he definitely took the side of Daniel Levy and said that he's getting too much of the blame. And like I said, I agree, but that doesn't mean that I think that Daniel Levy is without fault. Of course not. He's made loads of mistakes, and I wish he would make fewer. And I hope that if we do get the investment that apparently is coming in at some point, that he will, sail off in the sunset and we can move on to better things. I just will always question whether or not different means better and whether or not new means success. We'll find out. We'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it. Guys, it's been 11 minutes. I haven't even got to the main topics yet. Let's get to them. Heung Min's son has been apparently the target of interest from Galatasaray. Apparently Ziyech is going to be let go at the end of the season and that a bid is coming in, a sizable bid for Heung Min's son, although it doesn't really make sense because according to Transfer Market, Heung Min's son's contract is up in the summer and there is an already ongoing negotiation around extending that particular contract. And of course you would expect that to happen, but whether or not it's just a 1 year extension into the 25-26 season or whether it is going to be Sonny's big final payoff where he gets his kind of loyalty bonus, his four-year contract to see him through until he's 35 years old, and also maybe give Tottenham the chance to give him a payoff, to give Tottenham a payoff at some point in the future. If it's true, and I haven't done my research yet, but I'm assuming what was written in the press this morning is true, that he is in his last year of his contract right now, with an option, with a 1 year option to extend baked in, then I'm surprised that there hasn't been more big money noise from Saudi Arabia thrown his way. I'm surprised that there hasn't been more speculation. And I'm also surprised that Daniel Levy and the club haven't tied it down before now, because he's the cash cow. And as much as Heung Min's son is a loyal guy and a happy-go-lucky guy and captain of the football club and has never really made a problem or an issue out of salary, like a dream sort of player for a club to have on their books, that doesn't mean that you should rest on your laurels with that regard, and that eye-watering money wouldn't suddenly come along, especially if it was a free transfer-based situation from Saudi Arabia or from anywhere else to kind of to tie him down. Not sure. Strange one, but I expect him to sign a new contract. I would also say, though, for what it's worth, that whilst I understand the financial and economic incentives to keep the club still very much in the hearts and minds of the Korean fan base and all of the sort of juicy money that can come from that, I think that we do need a legacy transition plan, and I think that it's been a little bit remiss of Tottenham so far with that process. We don't really know, we haven't seen too much of Wilson Odeberg to know if he is the guy. Don't know too much about the Korean Heung Min Yang Min Hwak. Oh, and spit on that Yang. That's how I know of him. That's how I think of his name. We don't know really what standard he's going to be. And I think that it was interesting. Ricky made a good point yesterday on the show talking about players like Lucas Bergvall, who came in as the hottest property in Europe as an 18-year-old, and he hasn't broken through to the first team really yet outside of European games. Same with £40 million or 35 million to £40 million Archie Gray. Now, you know how I feel about Archie Gray. I think he's going to be an absolute monster. And that leads me on to the next story, guys, which is Pedro Porro. First of all, Archie Gray, there's a story about him leaving on loan in January, and that has been rejected apparently by Ange Postecoglou. He is saying that he's got very much strong ambitions and intentions to use Archie Gray increasingly in the Premier League in the second half of the season, and it's been a sort of gentle embedding period for him, but he's done well. He's only played, I think, 46 minutes of Premier League football, which is a little bit of a surprise considering the amount of money we paid for him. And bearing in mind, I think from memory, right, 35 million, but goes up to 45, I think it was, with add-ons and things. That's not dissimilar to the next story, which is Pedro Porro and his potential transfer to Manchester United. I think we paid about £42 million for Pedro Porro, that long, protracted, drawn-out January window of 2 seasons ago. And look, Pedro Porro has been, I would argue, the best right back since Trippier, and possibly not quite up there with obviously with Kyle Walker in terms of style. I think he fits a flat back for right back situation? I just don't think he's strong enough defensively in any back four. I think his talents are on the ball. His talents and his aggression, his work rate, his enthusiasm, his passion. He's got a wonderful shot on him, a brilliant cross, one of the best crosses in the Premier League from that kind of deeper line. And I think he more naturally suits a sort of midfield role that with an old school traditional right-sided midfielder. He's very, very technically gifted. I don't think he was ever intended to play as a right back. He was signed to play as a right wing back, and then that there was a pivot in the system, pivot in the managerial policy, and he's kind of been shoehorned in there. And I think if you ask him, I don't know, would you enjoy playing a role where you're asked to do things that you're not naturally that familiar with in any back four system, even with a lower line that most managers would employ? But with Ange Postecoglou's ridiculous high line, you're asking him to get back and do so much defensive work, so much responsibility to get back into that channel and kind of augment his natural abilities to the point where he is exhausted from all of the sprints. There's so much grass between him and the goal that he's defending. And, like I say, him and Udogie both have to, that's a cross they have to bear. But if the opportunity comes up to play for Real Madrid, he's going to take it. He's going to want to go there. He said himself he's flattered by the links. The links in today's press are regarding tying up again with Ruben Amorim at Manchester United, where he will employ a probable back three and utilise a wing back system. And you've got to think that maybe that relationship was so strong and they were so like kindred spirits, those two, that he would have his head turned. Now, are Manchester United a likely more, a higher candidate for success in the Premier League than Tottenham? Well, yeah. Even though I don't think that their team is any better than ours, and do I think that their club is in more of a mess than Tottenham? 100%. But look, you can't argue with the facts that despite how bad Manchester United have been, in the last, or in the post-Ferguson era, they still churn over every couple of years a trophy because it's sort of inbuilt into their DNA, and that doesn't probably exist as much for Tottenham anymore. Erik ten Hag won 2 trophies at his time in Tottenham, and yet will be thought of as a failure. It's a strange one, isn't it? That said, do I see Pedro Porro going to Manchester United? I don't. However, when you factor in how much money we paid for Pedro Porro and how much money you paid for Archie Gray, and the difference being fairly insignificant, well, how do you kind of square that circle? I think you have to figure out and land where you would want to. Either there is the inflation that is baked into youth / potential and homegrown is well over the top, or Archie Gray really is that good and has that much of a ceiling in front of him. And he can play right back. He obviously can play left back, centre back, right-sided centre back in a back three. He can play DM as a midfielder. The guy's in everything, a jack of all trades. Well, let's hope he's a master of all trades, but I don't think you can be that. And I said this on a previous video. I do think that Archie Gray at some point needs to figure out where he wants to be and master that position, because he has the potential to be one of the best at anything he wants to do. He just needs to figure out what he wants to do and then do it. And I think that being an everything guy could actually hold him back in his potential. Now, does selling Pedro Porro make room for him as the potential next Kieran Trippier or the next Kyle Walker? Maybe. But then who do you have behind him? Jed Spence? Well, maybe, but we haven't seen enough of Jed Spence. Although, from what I gather from listening to you guys on the various other channels and in the community, when Jed Spence has played this year, and like I say, I haven't seen too much of him because I wasn't paying attention when he was at the start of the season. But from what I hear, he's sort of pulled his socks up a little bit, which is good to hear. So maybe there is rationale to cash in on Pedro Porro. I don't think we should, but I think that if you could get the sort of money that, if Archie Gray is worth 40, Pedro Porro is what, 70? 75? And then you think, well, if you do that, what do you do with the money? where does it go? Does it go to replace him? Does it go to buy that monster 6 that is ever so important and more crucial now than it ever has been for my liking? Does it go towards a left back to cover for Udogie, a left-sided centre-back, a backup goalkeeper? Does it help the coffers turn over? I'm not sure. For me, the answer is no, don't sell him. I like Pedro Porro, he's one of my favourite players. I would acknowledge, though, that there is always the price. There is always the price at some level. And I would argue that if Ange Postecoglou is here to stay, and I hope that he is, for those of you that think I've turned on Ange, I haven't. I've just, I call it as I see it. I don't think he will change, and I think that that will ultimately be his downfall. However, I hope he gets a trophy. I hope he has success at Tottenham, and I hope he's here for the long time. And if he is, then that means everything is moving in the right direction. We get to watch good football that is also successful. So I'm very much on board with him staying, and I want to see this story play out. But if he is here, then is Pedro Porro the best fit for that particular role that is so unique in its responsibilities, its requirements, and does Pedro Porro have enough balance in his technical capabilities and his physical capabilities and his overall interest in playing that role to be the long-term solution at right back when he wasn't supposed to be this particular type of player when we signed him? It will have to shake out the way it shakes out. We'll see the way that the cookie crumbles as it plays out, guys. That's it from me. Let me know your thoughts. Daniel Levy, have I gone too far on the defence? Or is it important to hear both sides of the story? Pedro Porro, is he the guy for the future for Tottenham? Would you cash in? And if so, at what price point? Heung Min son to Galatasaray. I think I skipped over that conversation. I don't see that happening at all, obviously, because he's going to be here forever, isn't he? And Archie Gray being left, remaining at Tottenham over the rest of the season. Good news, right? We want to see more of this guy. We 100% do. Also, fill me in on Jed Spence. Is he good enough? Do you think he's worth keeping around? If so, in what role? Let me know, guys. Like, subscribe, and comment. Bugsy's going to bark. I'm going to go and do some work. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.